Instagram witches. This is Avani from Hedgecraft Heirlooms. Just so you know, if you're really curious, because I had to look it up, part of the reason why I named it Hedgecraft Heirlooms or Heirlooms is because of the alliteration. But it turns out, I thought, at least in England, that people would be pronouncing the H on heirlooms, but they do not. It is a silent H across all English variations, so it's Hedgecraft Heirlooms, but it looks like an alliteration when you read it on a piece of paper, so we're going to run with it. The Hedgecraft Heirlooms. Here I am, my name is Avani. Going to be talking about God Magick, specifically Odin today, this whole week on social media. Excuse me, I have been talking about Santa Claus. If you're here watching, always feel free to, or please make sure to put a hashtag live into the comments. If you're watching on the replay, hashtag replay. Helps other people, helps the algorithm pass it around to all the other people who might want to watch us. I'm going to be talking about Odin today. I am just going to pull up, oh good, look at this is finally in my shortcuts. This video on a second tab to make sure I can see all of your lovely comments because Facebook is don't like that. So again, if you're here watching, hashtag live, hashtag replay, so I can say hello. Hey Devin, please be sure to throw an actual hashtag or numeral sign live into the comments so people know you're watching. Hey Witch of the Moonlight, we're going to be talking about Odin today. So this entire week on social media, I have been talking about Santa Claus. And if you didn't already know, which by the way, I encourage you to go back and read about it, but if you didn't already know, Odin is one of the main inspirations for our modern day Santa Claus. But today, I really wanted to give Odin his full share of the spotlight and really just focus on Odin specifically outside of the context of Santa Claus, because Odin and me is one of my buddies, and I really wanted you guys to kind of get to meet him a little bit too. But before we jump to talking about Odin specifically, I want to show you guys some of the Odin-inspired goodies that are currently in my online shop. Just so you know, right now there's a Black Friday sale happening on my Etsy shop. Everything is 15% across the board. If you sign up for my VIP Heirloom Society at 6 o'clock tonight, and then again at 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, you will get emails with a coupon code that's actually 30% off everything on my Etsy, which is a great opportunity to do some holiday shopping for handmade goodies at a really decent price. And I would love to see all the things that I have available, including my Yule collection. So if you've been watching things and you really like something that's in there, you can go and you can grab it at a really good discount for whoever you want to buy for. But first, let me show you some of my Odin things. These are things that are going to be going on clearance on Monday. If you are new to watching my lives or new to me or whatever, you may or may not know that lately I have been sort of transitioning from an old website and an old name, Ecstatic Earth Arts, over to Hedgecraft Heirlooms. And so the clearance is going to be on my Ecstatic Earth Arts website, so I'm trying to get rid of all that stuff, so which will help me fund ultimately moving forward, kind of being able to kind of focus in on where I'm trying to move with Hedgecraft Heirlooms. Hey Rachel, glad you can make it. We're going to be talking about Odin today, but that said, I just kind of got some, fun, unexciting administrative stuff out of the way. Let me show you the Odin goodies I have for you before we talk about Odin specifically. These are, let me make sure I have both the same. These are some hand-painted pendants. These are on birch wood. Birch is associated with purification, especially in a lot of the northern traditions. It is also associated with lunar magic and the moon because it's white. So it's considered to be a feminine wood. But that said, I associate it really highly personally with a lot of Norse Germanic things because birch plays really heavily into a lot of the Finnish traditions, which is actually part of my heritage and my genetic background. Anyway, this is Sleipnir. So he is the 8-legged horse that Odin rides. Sleipnir is very, very special because he is able to travel in between all of the 9 worlds without any sort of barrier, which is part of why he is Odin's horse. Or Odin, which we'll talk about more later, is often called the Wanderer or the Traveler, in that one of his biggest kind of claims to fame is the way that he likes to travel around searching for wisdom, and Sleipnir is one of the things that allows him to do that. So this is Sleipnir. Like I said, I hand painted these. These are normally, I think, $18, but they're going to be half off on Monday, so that'll make them only $9. If you're interested in these and you want to grab them before the sale at that sale price and you're watching here, just feel free to hit me with a DM. I would love to hook you up with that ahead of time. You guys get special first dibs because you're here watching early. Thank you very much, Witch of the Moonlight. I have one other design of hand-painted pendants to show you. This symbol here is a symbol of Odin. It looks like, if you read it on paper, Valknut, but I have heard that it is actually pronounced Valnut. Maybe if Brian ever gets around to watching this, he'll probably correct me when he's here. But these are colors that are often associated with Odin. These were hand painted as well. Again, on birch, associated with purification, associated with a lot of the Nordic traditions and the moon and all of those things. And they are both dipped in resin, and then there is a finish of resin across the top, which both kind of protects the design. Hey Xanderson, we're going to be talking about Odin today. Right now I'm just showing off some of the Odin inspired goodies I have in my shop. They're going clearance on Monday if anybody wants to grab them ahead of time. At the clearance price, you can hit me with a DM. So these are the Valnut. I've only ever read the word. I'm sure I'm butchering it. Design. It is associated with Odin. There is very little historical information that actually links this back to Odin. It was like found on this one particular like relief of Odin, and so it's since kind of over time become associated with him. But a lot of people that really specifically work with Odin within that pantheon will utilize this symbol to represent him, as opposed to like a Thor's hammer. So if someone works with Odin but doesn't really feel it with Thor, then they might use this symbol instead. And then I also have, these were actually part of Father's Day. I know these seem really random. These are part of my Father's Day collection I did back in like June. And these are also Odin and Thor, admittedly, inspired. And I don't know how well you can see that, but in the sort of rune font they say, "Turn the Wheel of Fate." And there's all these blue colors and lightning. Again, blue is associated with Thor also. Odin, excuse me. And then this symbol here is called the Web of Weird. So it actually contains all of the runes within it, which is why it's often associated with I'm associating with Odin because Odin and the runes kind of go hand in hand, which I'll talk about them more really shortly. I don't remember how much these are. I should know, but I think they're probably like 24, which means that they're going to be half off. And just so you know, these are sprayed with this very special temperature resistant spray, so that way if you are using this on our actual grill and getting close to high heat, the paint should hold up. But this is hand painted by yours truly. I've got 2 of these left and only 2 left, so if you like these and think that the Viking in your life would love them too, hit me up. They're available. And then the final thing I'm going to show off before I talk about Odin, this isn't really directly related to Odin, but it wanted to be on screen today, so I figured I would show it to you. In the midst of all of this transitioning over to Hedgecraft Heirlooms, I actually made a couple of wands that I was planning on listing and never got around to, especially because now I'm kind of heading in different directions. So these might very well be the last 2 wands that I make ever. And here it is. So this wand here, and I kind of picked this one up. It has the blue. Again, I talked about how blue is associated with Odin. So it has a sodalite stone here. This is a piece of blue tiger eye. I don't know how well the light is going to pick that up, but it has some flash to it when the light catches it the right way. The light in here actually sucks, so I'm not surprised it's not really picking it up. I have a ring light, but that's so focused it's not really doing it. But anyway, this is black cherry wood. It is associated with the element of earth. It has clear quartz. It has sodalite. It has the blue tiger eye. It is very pretty. It is also quite long. I think when I did it like that, my intention was for it to be sort of bulky, like the intention that a male type person might want to use it because it's a little hefty. I'm just noticing that this end here does have a tiny bit of wobble to it, though there's no glue in any of my wands. I don't use glue, so it's all mechanical retention. This has a tiny wobble to it. It's not going anywhere, though. I am actually going to probably mark this down because of the wobble, but totally safe, not going to break as long as you're, careful with it. Obviously, anything can break if you're rough enough. So right now it's marked at 60. I'm probably going to mark it down to like 40, which means that if you want this at half off, you could literally get this for $20. Plus shipping, of course. So if you're interested, like I said, send me a DM, and we will hook you up before the real sale. Because once everything on there is gone, I'm not making it ever again. That is it. So anyway, now that we've gone through all of that, let's talk about Odin, because that's what you all came here for. So, first of all, I want to talk about the genealogy of Odin, as in, who his parents were, who his siblings were, all that sort of stuff, because I feel like those things are important in a lot of mythological type studies, because it kind of gives us clues to them and how they became who they are. So Odin is the son of Bestla, who was a frost giantess, interestingly, and Bor, who was at the time the king of the Aesir. So the Aesir, if you're not familiar with that terminology, is all of the gods who live on Asgard. If you watch any Marvel movies, you've probably heard some of those words before. Um, but in the Norse cosmology, there are 9 worlds. Hey, Mystica92, we're talking about Odin today. In the Norse cosmology, there are 9 worlds. We are on Midgard. So sort of like what, if you practice any sort of like New Age shamanism is akin to the middle world, so Midgard. And Asgard, you could kind of sort of liken to the upper world, but not exactly. And Asgard is where all of the Aesir live. There's also, is it Asgard? And then there's also, I think it is, and then there's also Vanaheim, which is where the Vanir, who is another set of gods, also live. The Asgard are usually more associated with like battle and warrior and that sort of thing. And the Vanir are more like love and fertility, and so they're kind of differentiated a little bit in that way. There's some theories that suggest that the Asgardian deities are more geared toward male spirituality, and the Vanir were targeted or intended more for female spirituality, but so much of the information has been lost through time and history and academics who decided that women weren't worth studying, that we can't really be sure of that, but there are some people that believe that thing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Going back to Odin, had two siblings, 2 brothers, so it was Odin, Vili, and Ve. I might be mispronouncing this because I've only ever read these things. And then Bestla, so if you forgot, Bestla is Odin's mother, who was a frost giantess. Her brother was Mimir. So, interestingly, that means, Mimir actually is going to play into some of the things that we talk about a little bit later. I just wanted to mention the fact that Mimir, therefore, through the genealogy, is Odin's uncle. And so, Odin's father, Bor, died in a battle. They battle a lot in the mythology, protecting Asgard, and at that point Odin took over as the king. So Odin becomes the big bad and the big guy in charge of the Asgardian deities, the king of Asgard, or the Aesir. So within the pantheon of Norse Germanic mythology, Odin is the god of knowledge and wisdom. And like I said, I mentioned earlier, in that sort of iteration, he is considered to be the Wanderer, or Odin the Wanderer, or Odin the Traveler, are both words that are often applied to him. He is the king of, or god of Valhalla, which I think almost everybody has heard of Valhalla, which is generally the afterlife for people who are warriors. Only warriors, for the most part. Like, not just anybody goes to Valhalla when they die, it's anybody who was a warrior specifically. There are lots of other different types of underworlds that are halls where people can go where they die, that are guarded by different deities. Like Freya has one, and Hela or Hel has one. So there are different places. But Valhalla is ruled specifically by Odin and is for warriors. He is also the god of rulers and outlaws. Now, you might wonder to yourself, what do those things have in common? Those seem like 2 really unrelated things. And the thing that marks those 2 things in common is that those are both people who make their own rules, which tells us that Odin likes to make his own rules. He is, in his own right, a sort of outlaw in that way, where he says, oh, well, that's what you usually do? Pfft, I'm not doing that. Fuck your rules. I am going to upload this to YouTube later, so I apologize in advance to anybody who watches this and goes, oh, she swore. But in real life, I say that word a lot, and it's really hard for me to censor myself usually. So, sorry, but kind of not sorry. But moving on. So, Odin is also a god of poetry. There is a whole other thing in the mythology about how eventually Odin passes that mantle on to Bragi, or Bragi, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. And he is also the god of Satyr, which is actually a type of Norse Germanic shamanism. Kind of a cool story, Satyr was taught to Odin by Freya, who we mentioned earlier is a god of the Vanir. And Satyr in general was considered to be was the pendant of Odin. No, the pendant is not specifically of Odin, Rachel. Excuse me, I had one that was Sleipnir. I'll show you again. There's one that was Sleipnir. There you go. And then I also have, I'll show you, I've got a couple, but also this one was called the Valknut, excuse me, which is a symbol of Odin. So it's not an image of Odin. I do have some Odin things I'll show you that are of Odin, but they're my personal pieces. I pulled them out because they felt like being seen today, so they'll get their spotlight shortly. So Satyr, considered to be somewhat unmanly, and oftentimes when men did participate or practice Satyr, they were viewed and made fun of as like, oh, well, that's girly. That's a girly thing. Why are you doing that girly thing? And Odin was known to actually be teased for that very thing, especially by, like, Loki. And Odin basically said exactly what I just said to you a few seconds ago. He was like, I don't care what you think. I'm going to do it because I like doing it. I don't care about your gender norms, so, F you. That's actually one of the things that I love about Odin is that he says, oh, that's a girly thing? Let me do that then. I like that thing. I want to do that thing because I'm not supposed to, so let's do it up. So that said, let's talk a little bit about some of the common myths that Odin is sort of heard about within. One of them is the Well of Mimir. So I mentioned earlier that Mimir is actually Odin's uncle, interestingly. And he is a giant, in case you missed that, because he was the older brother of his mother, Vesla, who was a frost giantess. So therefore Mimir is a frost giant, excuse me. So Odin, as I mentioned earlier, had an insatiable desire for knowledge and wisdom, and he would go out of his way to travel to various places to get it on Sleipnir. Now, Odin knew that the Well of Mimir, who was his uncle, was at the roots of Yggdrasil, which is the world tree. So when we talk about the 9 worlds are all kind of connected at the trunk of the world tree, and that's how we travel to and from all those places, is by traveling up and down the tree. So he knew it was at the roots of Yggdrasil, and that the water within this well was magical, and that it would make whoever drank it very, very wise. Hey, Michelle Curie, I'm seeing you there. It's not giving me an option to click the little wave thing, but I'm glad you're here. We're talking about the god Odin today. Right now I'm giving you a little overview of some of the myths that he's within, talking about the Well of Mimir. So, Odin, knowing that this magical water was at the roots of Yggdrasil, said to himself, I want to be wise, so I'm going to go steal some of that there water. I want to have that. So he hopped on Sleipnir, and they galloped on down Yggdrasil, down to the roots, down to Mimir. And actually, I guess they traveled the Bifrost, which is the sort of rainbow, where the idea of the Rainbow Bridge comes from, and the idea that they would travel down this bridge, again, down Yggdrasil, but the Bifrost is still part of the myth. That is a real thing, not just a Marvel thing. So Mimir, of course, is very, very wise, because Mimir had forever, since the beginning of time, been drinking the water from the well every single day. So Mimir was very, very difficult to trick, so to speak. So Odin said, you, Mimir, I want some of that water. And Mimir said, well, why would I give it to you? Then I would no longer be the wisest person alive. What would you sacrifice in order to get it? And Odin, in all of this kind of like, chest puffing in the myth, Odin was talking about, oh, well, I'm so wise and I can see all of these things because I'm a god and I'm almost omnipotent and I'm amazing. And Mimir basically said, well, if your eyes and your sight is so amazing, then would you sacrifice an eye for this wisdom? And Odin thought about it, and he wasn't crazy about the idea, but so great was his desire for wisdom that finally he said, you know what, fine, I will absolutely sacrifice my eye, and he plopped it out, and it sank to the bottom of the well. And at that point, he was able to take the water and drink it, and thus Odin became the second most wisest person or being in the world after Mimir. And so that's one of the big myths that Odin is part of. So the other myth, I'll talk about one more. The other myth that is really commonly associated with Odin is the acquisition of the runes. So Odin, again, having this great desire for wisdom and knowledge, recognized that the Norns, or as they are sometimes called, the Fates, had this great wisdom and power that he did not. They had the ability to weave fate and create the word, W-Y-R-D, word, of humanity, and he was very jealous of their ability to do that, and he wanted to have that ability of sight, that ability of wisdom, that ability to weave. So in order to do that, he hung himself from the branches of Yggdrasil, and stabbed himself with his own spear. Odin was known to carry a spear called Gungnir. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right again. So stabbed himself with his own spear. The idea being that he sacrificed himself with himself, which is an irrelevant part of the story. And then at that point he died. Well, at some point, because he hung there for 9 days with no food, no water, bleeding out, upside down. And at the point of death, he traveled into the underworld, saw the runes, grabbed them, and actually came back to life, and was able to bring them the knowledge of the runes, of course, to his own mind, but then also shared them with humanity. And as sort of, I kind of have here as a sort of note about the runes, while a lot of people like to use runes for divination, the way that I was taught to use the runes by a local rune master who kind of looks a little bit like Odin, might be an incarnation of Odin for all I know. The way that he teaches runes, interestingly, is not really about divination. It's more about using runes for magic and tapping into the sort of primordial energies of them. And I have to give some real credit to Rogue Tradition, who is on Instagram and also on Facebook, who is another person who works really deeply with the runes, and she described them just this past week. She did a live about this in her Facebook group, and the way she phrased it I thought seemed really poignant, so I'm going to share it here with you, that the runes are not necessarily, they're not fortune telling devices. They are a physical manifestation of primordial energies that have existed since time immemorial, and which is sort of amazing when you think about them as this single point of focus for all of these gigantic energies. Hey there, I don't know why Instagram isn't letting me wave at people anymore, but the people that joined us, thank you for being here. If you're watching through, throw hashtag live into the comments. If you're watching on the replay, hashtag replay. Helps the algorithm, reach out and grab people who want to be watching along with you. But that said, so what y'all missed, hey Floreskin Lab, we're here talking about Odin today. I just kind of did a little overview of his genealogy, of what he is the god of, some common myths that Odin is in. So if you want to hear about those things, you'll have to go back and rewatch from the beginning afterwards. And now I want to talk a little bit more about working with Odin, kind of wrapping up towards the end here. If you are a person who is an academic, you're someone who's a researcher, or you are in the military, or someone who could be perceived as a warrior, or people who are kind of working within the Norse Germanic shamanic tradition, Odin can be a wonderful deity to work with. Also, for people who are going into Norse Germanic shamanism, Freya is another place I'd start. Odin and Freya kind of together are the two gods that are associated with that tradition. Some animals that are associated with Odin include Sleipnir, horses, wolves, ravens, Hugin and Munin. I don't know if you can see, I have this little raven here. He's here because of Odin, and actually I have my Odin statue here too. I just moved over. I said if they wanted to get showed off today, let me not forget about that. So obviously statues of Odin. So this is actually a statue I painted. It was highly inspired by a person who does wood carving on Etsy, which is not within my skill set, but painting is. So this wood that it's made out of is actually Japanese maple. It's from a tree that was in our yard that we had to cut down because it died, so it got second life by becoming Odin. So we have Odin. Odin has his shield, which has the Valknut in it, which I was talking about earlier. He has his spear, Gungnir, and then there's Hugin and Munin on the back, the ravens, and then this is actually a rune. There's also a rune here. This is Ingwaz, and then also this one here is called Othala, which is widely used as the rune to represent Odin, because it is often used as the letter O if you're using an alphabet, which is not really the intended purpose of runes, but a lot of people do like to use them that way. Oh, and you can also see how he's missing an eye here. Many of the depictions of him are like that. And then this is another Odin. This is a really cool piece. You can see this one actually has both eyes, but I found this in a bin at an antique store as a Christmas ornament, actually, but it made me think of Odin more than Santa Claus, so I grabbed him, and now he lives on one of our altars in here. But so obviously statues of Odin if you want to create an altar to him. Colors that are associated with Odin include blue. You can see there's lots of blue in this. And a lot of the things that I've created that I said are kind of Odin related, there's a lot of blue. Often when people talk about Odin as a traveler, he's wearing a blue cloak, like a fur-lined blue cloak. And then also black, gray, and silver. Some herbs or plants that Odin is associated with includes Amanita muscaria, which is actually a mushroom, not a plant exactly, which is the magic red mushrooms you see with the white spots on them, which most people know them as. Also, Ella campaign, juniper, monkshood, or Wotan's herb. Interestingly, almost all of those things are psychoactive, which is sort of interesting when you think about Odin as a god of Norse shamanism, Norse Germanic shamanism, and satyr, which makes you kind of wonder if those were commonly used for shamanic traditional historical shamanic practitioners of the time. And then, of course, one final thing that you would probably want to include on your altar if you're working with Odin is runes, because Odin and runes are like this. None of my runes wanted to come to really be seen today, but I have a really beautiful set. If you were following me on Instagram, I shared a few of them earlier this week on my Wisdom Wednesday post. So that said, while you folks are still here, let me show you my Odin things that are for sale. Are they going to be on sale on clearance on Monday? 50% off. If you're here watching and you like any of these things, you get early first dibs. You can get the sale price now, which is pretty darn cool. So first of all, I have these really beautiful Sleipnir pendants. These are normally $18. They're going to be $9 on clearance, so if you're interested, shoot me a DM or a comment and we'll get you sorted out. Sleipnir, 8-legged horse of Odin who can travel between the 9 worlds. And then also these Valknut hand-painted on birch medallion pendants. Valknuts. And then I had these grill turners, which are part of my Father's Day collection that say Turn the Wheel of Fate, with the web of words symbol on them. Oh, that was a really good shot. The light caught that just right, which is special because it's said to contain all of the runes within it. And finally, the wand. So I was just saying, I noticed this has a little wobble to it. All of my wands have no glue in them. So I'm going to end up marking this down. It was at 65. I'm going to mark it down probably to 20, 25. Well, excuse me, 40, 45, which on sale is going to be 20 to 22.50. So this guy's going to be really cheap. So if you want it at that really steep discount now, let me know. So that said, those were all the things I wanted to show you. And then now I want to talk about, and I'm a little sad that we lost a couple people. But, so if you are in my Facebook group especially, you probably know that I am going through a lot of really big changes with my business, and things are shifting and transitioning, and I'm moving away from Ecstatic Earth Arts and moving into Hedgecraft heirlooms, still trying really hard to not pronounce that H. And part of that is I'm kind of getting away from this whole, like, scheduled content. My entire life has, like, for months and months now, rotated and centered around the creation of all this social media content that I'm supposed to be doing, according to all of the marketing gurus that are out there. But I am struggling, and it is really not fun, and I desperately want to have more time to just, like, create and, like, make things for you guys, because I feel like I've got so much more in me that I just can't get out because my time is so limited. So I am putting a big, giant, fat halt on most of my, I should say, sort of like educational, planned ahead social media content. I am still going to be doing lives. I'm still going to be posting things, maybe not as often, maybe not quite so structured. Like I've been, for a while now, I've been like a week out, like planning things. Like all of my Santa Claus stuff I created last week, not this past week, which means that next week I have nothing planned to go up. It's the first time that's happened in a while, and I'm trying really hard not to freak out internally over it, but the universe has been sending me some really strong messages that say, hey, you, cut it out, and listen to us, and we'll tell you what to do, and it's going to be okay. So I'm trying that. I'm trying that as a new thing, where I take my cues from the gods instead of from the gurus, because, I mean, if we had to put those on a hierarchy, just saying. So, that said, I have no specific plans for what I'm going to do next week in my live stream. What I really want to do is find something that we can do that is a little bit more interactive, because I feel like the way these things have been going, it's like I'm talking at you, and that's not like what I want to be doing. Like, I want us to be having, oh, thank you, Eastif. Maybe I'm pronouncing that wrong, but either way, thank you. I want to get some ideas from all of you about what I can do that you would like that would be more interactive, like where we're having more of a conversation. Like, I've thought, like, maybe I should just have a talking point and I can just, like, ramble. Or I can do sort of like single card readings for people that show up and we can talk about tarot or runes or whatever. Or I also had a thought that maybe people could just throw into the comments, like, I want to learn about blah blah. And I can throw those all into a list and have people vote on what their favorite is every week. Tiff. Hey, Tiff. Glad you're here. So I know that a few weeks ago I did a poll in my Facebook group about things that people wanted to hear about. Speaking of, I'm going to take this tab and I'm going to see if I can actually find it. Come on, cooperate with me. Heirloom Witches Society is my Facebook group. If you want to join it, we would love to have you there. The more the merrier. Let's see. Search poll. Will it just show me all the polls? I think this is it. It is, yes. So I said, as I switch things up here, this was back on the 11th. So it says, as I switch things up here, let me get some ideas about the type of content you'd like to see. These are the things that people really liked. First thing was plant magic, like trees, plants, more than just herbs. To be clear, like, as much as I love herbs, I am not an expert. I sort of learn, and then I pass it on to you as I learn. So, like, doing tree magic, I absolutely can make happen, because to me, that tree magic and wand lore kind of go hand in hand, and I've been doing wands for a while now, so that's something I can do. Me sharing personal rituals of mine, that was another thing that people really liked, although I don't have anything specific to do next Friday, necessarily. More gemstone magic. I kind of have a gemstone magic that's already happening. But if you want to hear more, or if there's a specific gemstone you'd like me to talk about, I'll throw that into a comment. That's the thing. Herbal magic, seasonally. Excuse me. God and Goddess magic, which is what we did here today. Live streams of product creation and artwork. I can totally do that. I can just draw and have people have a conversation with me while I'm doing it, because one of the things on my current to-do list is to create some goddess artwork for Imbolc, specifically of Bridget. Or here I have one about developing a brand aesthetic for professional witches, and then of course basics of product photography, again for pros or crafters. Again, not that I'm an expert, but I can at least pass on what I know and what seems to work for me. If you have any specific ideas or things that you want to hear about, especially if you're here now or if you're going to be watching on the replay, I want to hear from you guys, or I could just sit down and drink tea and we can talk about whatever comes up. I would love to do something kind of unstructured next week, and and then maybe the week after that, give myself a couple weeks, and then maybe the week after that, jump into something that's a little bit more specific. So let me know what you want to hear, what you want to see, what you want from me, what I can do for you guys that would really help make this experience better for you guys, because I'm tired of talking at you. It's not fun, and as educational as I'm sure it is, I would love to hear from you guys too. So let me know what you're thinking. I hope that those of you that watch this, give me some ideas, throw them into the comments. I will see them whether I'm live or not, and I will absolutely respond. And like I said, if you like anything that you saw here, hit me up in the comments and we'll hook you up at half price early. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. It's the after the holiday. I hope that you're starting your holiday shopping and getting things done, and that you guys had a good one. So have a happy post-Thanksgiving weekend. Blessed be, and take care.